everyone. This is Jessica, host of the Going Scared podcast and founder of the socially conscious fashion brand Noonday Collection. And we are going to cover all things social impact, entrepreneurship, and courage. This week, we are continuing with our Imperfect Courage series. We are down to the almost final chapter called Quit Trying. And it's the chapter that's all about if we want to make a sustainable impact in our lives, then we've got to take the long haul view. And this is a lesson, honestly, that it's been a hard lesson for me to learn how to take the long view. And I wanted to include this chapter because it's tempting to be a workaholic in our culture. It's tempting to just put the pedal to the metal. Many of us are addicted and we're unable to step away. But if we're going to do anything for the long term, we've got to learn how to take care of ourselves, how to avoid burning out. And we got to learn how to rest. And so when it came time to interviewing someone for this chapter, I really wanted to interview Aaron Edelheit. Aaron is the Chief Strategy Officer of Flow Technologies, and he recently released a new book called The Hard Break, The Case for the 24/6 Lifestyle. You heard it, not 24/7, 24/6. Like many entrepreneurs, he was a workaholic, and he actually had a collision course with a myriad of health issues. He wore stress like a badge of honor. His career literally enveloped his entire existence, and he knew he had to make a change. And through a 3-year journey, he made a radical change to take a Sabbath, a hard stop weekly Sabbath. He calls the hard break a love letter to the regular practice of intentionally stepping away from the frenetic craziness of modern day life. This has been an interview that stuck with me. I actually did it quite a while back, and it really moved me because I did it during a week that was super crazy. I was feeling pretty frenetic, and it was on a Friday evening, right before he was about to take his official Sabbath. And when I say hard stop, I mean hard stop. You're going to hear all about it. And as we were getting off at the end, he just said, I just can't wait. It's been a crazy week and I can't wait to Sabbath. That's really stuck with me. It's encouraged me to continue to practice the Sabbath even during a crazy time. I can't wait for you to give it a listen. I am really excited to talk today because I am fascinated by this concept of actually taking a Sabbath, because I think it's so much more than just about a break, but it's actually about resting and doing what's restorative during that break. And that's what I have a hard time doing. So we're going to get into that later. But first, I would love for you to tell listeners a little bit more about yourself, and especially the work you do with social venture partners, because I know that you partner with donors and social enterprises to help some of the most vulnerable people. And you guys don't just throw money at a problem, but you really build an infrastructure. And there's so many shared values between that and what Noonday Collection does. You really are amplifying dignity and opportunity for others. So just share a little bit more about what you're up to.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. No, the work that we're trying to do at Social Venture Partners is really just help it's nonprofits and government, and really kind of come in and be an independent resource to help them build up programs, new nonprofits, bring innovative ideas to try. And my specific focus is around homelessness. So right now I'm trying to help a couple of local government agencies where I live in Santa Barbara, California, focus on using data more effectively to treat homelessness. So that's getting people into the right places, making sure all the agencies are using a coordinated entry system, and that they're collaborating more and more. All of everything we do is about the effective use of data, and some of our government efforts are just behind, and some of the nonprofits don't have the money to invest. So I'm just working on a small initiative to try to duplicate what other cities and counties have done and bring it to my local area.
That's so needed. The idea of collaborating across agencies and organizations to help solve a problem. It's like everyone's after the same mission, but getting people to talk can be challenging. So I
Yeah.
love that work.
Yeah,
Okay.
I also feel very, very grateful that I get to live here in California, and I have a beautiful house. I'm very, very grateful, and it's just I'm trying in my own small way to give back to those who don't have the luxury that I have.
So tell us a little bit more about your career. I have to say, as I was reading your book, I used to flip homes with my husband during. And so I'm thinking, okay, we owned about 6 homes at one time, but I cannot imagine the hundreds of homes that technically your company was investing in at one point. So why don't you give a highlight of your career? Because where we're really taking people today is this idea of eventually taking a break, but that came from living life at a really high stress level.
Yeah, so first thing you should know about me is that I'm a workaholic, and I'm
Recovering
driven.
workaholic or
No, I
no,
wouldn't
okay, no
say.
recovering.
No, so part of the reason that I wrote this book, I have wrote this book to myself, just to remind
Mhm.
myself against my worst habits. No, I'm a workaholic. I'm driven in ways that I'm not sure I understand. And so I've always been interested in business and investments. And for 12 years, had my own small money management company and built that up to a small hedge fund. And it was really during then when I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to outperform in the stock market and invest and really protect my investors' money that I kind of hit a wall. And that's when I first kind of learned that working all the time was not helping me. It was actually hurting my health, my personal well being. I wasn't making the right decisions. And um, I kind of fell back into taking a break on a Saturday, trying a Sabbath. And actually, that's what enabled me to eventually buy 2,500 single family homes, all bought one at a time, and eventually sell the company.
I thought it was so interesting because you started that company after implementing the Sabbath. But
Yes.
why don't you tell us, which honestly lends you a lot of credibility because I think it's easy to talk about a Sabbath when you've sold your company and you're living a more of a relaxed lifestyle. But I love what you're saying. You're like, I'm a workaholic and you would work all the time if you wanted to. But you're suggesting a radical idea to us that we would actually stop. I'd love to hear, though, what was your moment of realizing that it wasn't productive for you to keep just running, running, running?
Well, I just realized I had a number of things, and I describe it in the book where a number of kind of negative things happened to me. You know, my personal life, my health, business has started underperforming, and my first thought was, I have to double down. I have to really, and no matter how many hours I put in, how much I grind, I grind myself down. I just wasn't getting anything out. Um, and I just realized, well, something has to change because this isn't working. And out of that, I just almost out of desperation, kind of said, well, what? Maybe I should turn my phone off. And so I tried. And so right before the way I tried, it's like it seems so ridiculous now, but I said, okay, I'm gonna right before I go to bed on Friday night, I'm gonna turn it off, and I'm gonna try to make it till noon on Saturday. And that seemed like an incredible Herculean task. And it's
Yeah,
so
I mean, it
ridiculous.
does. It's ridiculous, and
It's
yet
totally ridiculous.
it's true though. I mean, it's true. I'm a checker myself, okay? So, I mean, I have that compulsive reaction of needing to check my social and scroll and all of those things. So it can feel quite Herculean.
Well, one of the things I just ask you is, uh, do you like feeling 57% more stress than the average American? Well, then just check your emails around work or texts when you're not working.
Isn't that
Like
crazy?
this is part of what I I mean we can digress and stuff, but so one of the things that I found is so I eventually started this. I started with like 4 or 5 hours, and then I said, oh, I can make it till 2 or 3 p.m. And then after a couple months, it's like I can do the whole day. And it so radically transformed my life, like personally and professionally. And I just found these, like, suddenly I can sustain the work. And I was giving myself a vacation every week. And I found that knowing that I had a regular break coming, I could push myself and then release. And then by the time the day of relaxation was over, I was excited to re-engage. So I was rejuvenated. And I think that it enabled me to have the success, or to really see through the ups and downs, because there was some ups and downs in my business. It wasn't like a straight line where I just started buying foreclosed homes in 2008 and then everything was rainbows and sunshines in sunshine. It wasn't that, but it enabled me to persevere in a way that I don't think would have been possible without the Sabbath practice. And once I sold my company, after watching a bunch of work behavior from people inside my company, people I was working with on all different types of, I said to myself, I want to write a book about this. And I spent 3 years researching. There are 200 footnotes in the book. I actually stripped a lot out for it not to be a scientific journal. I then interview and profile a number of businesses and people who practice in some way, shape, or form, basically saying that in today's society, I think this is how you can outperform. This is how you can succeed. So my book is the business case for the Sabbath. And so there's like that. There's this is why I'm so passionate about it, is because even now I'm working with a startup. I have an investment partnership in Charlotte. I'm partnering to build homes outside of Atlanta. I'm working on a homelessness initiative. I'm on the board of another nonprofit. I have 3 young kids, aged 4 to 8 months old. Like, there's a lot going on in my life, and if I didn't
Mhm.
have the Sabbath, I would completely self-destruct.
So let's give us the bad news first, because you did do a ton of research for this book. And there is this myth out there that more work, more hours equals more productivity. And we almost wear our stress like a badge of armor. I love what Brene
Yeah.
Brown says, that she
Yeah.
says it's like a great armor. What a lot of us do is that we stay so busy that the truth of how we're feeling and what we really need can't catch up with us. So tell us the bad news first, because you're saying that this is actually a myth. This actually isn't true.
Yes, yes. And so this is part of what I try to dispel is the research is very clear for many decades of research that basically once you work past 55 hours a week, you're just not getting, there's really no difference between 55 and 70 hours. And they actually find that, now look, in any 1 week or 2 week period, could you really, burn the midnight oil and try to accomplish a lot? Yes. The problem is when that becomes a consistent thing week after week, what happens is your productivity plunges. And beyond that, you start actually underperforming below what a 40-hour a week person would do. And not only that, then comes health issues. You're substantially more likely to get sick. You're substantially more likely to get injured. You're more likely to make mistakes, to not have the ability to really process information as well. And so there's like an overwhelming amount of research that, from a business productivity perspective, you're going to underperform if you overwork. Then you layer on the health aspects, which I touched on, but the mental health aspects. I think all of us realize that something fundamentally is going wrong when the amount of people that are having mental health issues.
Mm.
That something is wrong in our society. The anxiety levels, the prescription medications for depression, the fact that we're connected on a level. It's not just work, but it's also social media and technology. Is that we're not built to be connected and have this onslaught of information and coming at us. And really, the downside of being on call. And so when you have your phone on you, you may not realize it, and it's on all the time. You are on call to the world. It may not be work, but it may be people on Facebook, coworkers, family, friends, but you are on call. and there are severe negative problems, for cortisol in your system, which is a marker of stress, to finding sleep habits, to just the mental health aspect of dealing with it. And we can see what's going on. And especially what's really frightening is when you look at kids. That I highlight in the book is the number one way middle school kids die now is from suicide.
Mm.
And college campuses are being overrun with mental health cases. It's growing at double-digit percentages every year. So you just have to like, what happened around 2007, 2008, that suddenly mental health issues would explode? I think it's not a coincidence that that's smartphone adoption. And it's both the best and the worst thing. And that
Mm.
our kids don't know of or remember of a world when you weren't always online. And they're going through these very tough times of puberty, high school, college, etc. And they're having to manage their own lives, but their digital lives as well. It's just overwhelming.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you about because it really has blurred the lines between work and home and social. I
Yes.
almost want to ask you, how do you define work? Because I'm in the middle of a book launch and I'm the CEO of a company
Yeah.
and I am managing a lot of social media right now because that's the
Yeah.
sort of my own brand where that's how people are finding out about the book. And it's easy for me to say, well, I'm not reviewing resumes right now, or I'm not delivering on something I need to look at for the executive team, but I am commenting on Instagram or getting back to my DMs. And it's almost, so how do we define work? Because we have to define work in order to know what to actually
Yeah.
rest from and take a
So,
break
so,
from.
but it's so you may that's a wonderful question. So it's not just work, but it's also technology. And there's just really a wonderful phrase for how the modern world works right now. Is the modern work world is what I would call leaky.
Mm.
In other words, your work kind of leaks into personal and back. And I'll give you a great example. When my phone is on and I'm with my 4-year-old daughter on the floor and we're playing, and I go to turn on music for her or take a picture because she's doing something really cute. And then I'm like, oh, there's an email I have. I wonder what it is. And I click on it. And my daughter immediately will turn to me, even if it's like 5 seconds, and she'll be, Papa, will you play with me? And I'm like, well, I'm playing with you. I'm sitting right here. But she knows that she doesn't have my full attention. And it's just the difference, the balancing. There's no balance there. And we're just incredibly distracted all the time. And
Mhm.
it's the idea of giving yourself, your mind and body, a break from running all the time. So you may think, oh, well, I'm just going to go and I'm going to check Facebook. And then you just realize, well, oh, that reminds me, I need to go check the social media. I need to go. I forgot to respond to this one direct message that somebody sent me. And then all of a sudden you're back at work, and you're not giving yourself, your brain, the time to really unwind.
Mhm.
And it's just a problem. And so that's all the negative. Now let me tell you the positives. The positives of, I mean, one, this isn't meant to be an anti-technology screed. It's technology is amazing. The ability we have to connect, the FaceTime, the fact that you and I are talking so easily, it's amazing. Um, but there's just the downside. But let's move to, um, you're a CEO of a company. You have a book. You have a brand. You're trying to grow your business. You're trying to get out there. What is the number one way that you and I can succeed in the world? Well, it's not about working more hours. It's not about sending more emails, texts, putting more social media posts out there. We know this. What will break through is being creative, being
Mm.
innovative, standing above the crowd. So how do you do that? Well, it turns out, and this is what's so fascinating, is you have a tradition like the Sabbath that's thousands of years old, And the latest neuroscience is showing that basically, if you want to succeed in today's world, that the Sabbath has a lot of benefits. It turns out that when you're resting and relaxing and you're not on your phone, you're going for a walk, or you're not working, that what happens is you think you're not using your brain, but there's a part of your brain called the default mode network that actually goes into overdrive. Okay? And so what is the default mode network? Well, the default mode network is the part that processes our experiences, tries to gain understanding and form patterns. So when you're not resting, you're not giving the part of your brain that is going to create and going to gain new understandings. You're actually hurting your chance to succeed. So who has the strongest default mode networks? It's their artists.
Mm.
And so then let's shift into anecdotally, like, what does that mean? Have you ever had the proverbial idea in the shower where
Yeah.
suddenly you're going for a walk and a solution to a problem hits you? Why does that happen then? It's because you may not realize, but that your brain is processing when you're not actively thinking about it. It's this kind of ironic or contrary thing. And so, wonderful story that I share in my book is, I don't know if you've gotten the chance to see the musical Hamilton,
Not
but
yet.
anyway, it's the most probably innovative, creative, unique musical that I think has come out in decades,
Hmm.
and is lauded with all this praise. And so, how did he come up with the idea for the play? Well, he had a successful play, won a couple of Tony Awards, and was burned out, and decided, I need a vacation, and went on vacation. And at the airport, before he took off, I need something to read. And he picked up the biography of Hamilton by Ron Chernow and went on vacation. While he was on vacation, he was sitting there reading this book that had nothing to do with work or Broadway, and all these ideas of having a play about with rap and a multiracial cast, and that this would work in today, and it would be compelling and something super unique, and this typifies. And there's lots of stories from Einstein when he was stuck on a problem, picking up a violin, or Steve Jobs was notorious for
Hmm.
going for walks.
Yeah. I have this chapter in my book that's called Quit Trying, and it's all about truly making a commitment to a lifestyle of impact. And if you're going to do that, then you have got to learn how to rest. And
Yes.
during the first few startup years of Noonday Collection, it was nuts. I mean, you know how it is when you're running a startup. And I remember Googling during that time. I think I Googled rest. I might have Googled Sabbath. And this article came up that was written by a pastor in New York who I'm thinking, well, he's in New York and New Yorkers work hard. They know how to grind.
Yes.
And he was encouraging people to take a Sabbath. And what he said is, he said, many careers demand some sort of initial period of heavy, intense work. Starting your own business will require something similar. In these situations, you have to watch that you don't justify too little Sabbath by saying you're going through a season when in actual fact, that season never ends.
That's
And
exactly right.
it's so easy for us to excuse ourselves to think, well, once I get to this point of arrival, then I can rest.
Well, I love that. And let me just tell you that what you just quoted is the reason why I wrote the book,
Mm,
because that is deep insight, and that is someone who should be listened to. But if your pastor came to you, your friend, your family, um, and a therapist, whoever you were talking to, and you were struggling with the startup, you were experiencing stress, or wherever you are in life, and said, hey, you should take a Sabbath, you should take a break. Your reaction, and I know because this was me, was, well, you don't, no, that sounds great. That may be good for you, but you don't understand the modern world. I
mm,
need to succeed. There are so many things that I have to do, and I have to achieve this, this, and this, and I have to, provide for my family. And there's a bunch of justifications. The reason I wrote this book is because I wanted to definitively say, well, actually, you do need to take a break because it will help you succeed and it will be many benefits. Here's all the research, and here's a number of companies at the highest level of success and people at the highest level of success.
All right. Well, what I would really want to know, we've talked about what work is. We've talked about this fluidity between work and personal and how all the lines are being completely scattered and erased in our modern day technology culture. What I want to know is what is a Sabbath? Because it is more than just taking a break, right? There actually is a level of rest and restoration. And I think that's what I'd really love for you to help me with.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let me tell you what the Sabbath isn't. The Sabbath is not you laying in bed for
I'm
a
relieved. I'm
period
relieved
of
to hear
time.
that.
It is not you doing anything. It's not you sitting in a corner like meditating, or though you can do that, for 24 hours or something like that. No, what the Sabbath is and what it's meant to be, I believe, is it's meant to be something different. So, and that's why the book is called A Hard Break. It's a break from everything that you are doing and how you're running around during the week.
Mm,
So, so what does that mean? That means that if you have a meal, it is it's not you shoving food down your throat, which is how I
mm,
call it panic eating.
Yep, I was
Because
just doing that before we got on. I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's about to get on, and I haven't eaten anything yet."
no, I get it because we're all, there's a lot going on. Um, And so it's that you're not being distracted by technology, that you're really trying to connect with people. So when I go meet with friends or family, and we say, whether it's you go to a park or someone's house or a restaurant, it's I'll see you there at 1. And it's really funny, people that don't know me, or the people that for the first time we're setting up a meeting on a Saturday, I'll let them know, well, just to let you know, I'm not going to have my phone on, so I'll see you there at 1. And
Mm.
normally there's this panic on the other side. Well, how am I going to get a hold? What? Oh my good, because we're
So you
so
literally turn your phone off, like it is off.
it's off.
It's off, off.
Yeah. And so there's this panic on the other side because we're so used to, oh, I'm 5 minutes away, or I'm running 5 minutes late, or, can you bring this? Forgetting that, people used to just meet each other and
It's
say,
so
I'll be
true.
here. And so invariably, people will meet you and be on time. And if they're a little late because something happened, it's a little late. I'm not rushing to go do something else. The other thing that with the Sabbath is it's meant to have a relaxed kind of like that the time is yours. So the worst thing you could do it as a Sabbath is, let's say you turn off your phone and you don't work, but then you go schedule 15 million activities for that day.
Mm,
So it's, I'll do one activity, maybe two, of like a scheduled nature. You know what I love doing? Speaking of rest, I love taking a nap when I can. I love reading for pleasure. So
mm.
many of us are trying to improve ourselves.
Oh
And in
my
our
gosh.
downtime, we're reading books like mine, which I recommend. But, you know, some of my favorite memories of just doing stuff with Sabbath is just reading fiction that's just pure fun, like popcorn fiction, um,
Like John
it's,
Grisham.
yeah, all of that, or you just cut open the book and there's nothing bothering you, really playing with your kid, going to the park, going to a museum, or if you watch TV or a movie, watch something that's just enjoyable. Nothing about business, no documentaries, no politics, because we're all being, kind of blasted with all of this. I highly recommend that one of the things to do on the Sabbath is have some kind of ritual around a meal. It's
Mm,
amazing when you look into the research about the outcomes for children that have where they eat with their parents
mm,
as they grow up, and they have the more times that you eat together and that you have shared meals can have some of the greatest impact to the outcome of your kids in like crazy things. You may not think of it, but like whether your kids are going to struggle with drugs or what kind of friends. It's these unstructured moments where it's not like you're picking them up for school. How are you doing? And they're like, I'm fine. And then you're going back and they're thinking about a million things, but you're just having a meal and you're just eating and you're talking and things can come up. And, you know, we as a society and as a culture used to, prize these either on Sunday or Friday, to basically, be together.
Yeah.
The most amazing thing about what this out is like we're connected in ways that we've never been connected before. But then why are people so lonely? Why are
Right.
there articles coming around saying that there's like a loneliness epidemic? And it's because these connections are not deep. So
It's
the
like we're
sat
willing to take
yeah.
the time to connect with an author through a book or a self-help podcast, but we're not willing to like actually connect with the people right in front of us. I can't think because that's messier. It's two ways. Listening to a podcast is a one-way street. So is reading a book, but actually connection involves acknowledging maybe ways where we messed it up that week.
Yes, it can be absolutely hard. I mean, some of this can be like if you're having difficult personal relationships or whatever. But you know what doesn't help in the long run? Ignoring it.
Well, yeah, then it comes
And
out sideways.
yeah, but the thing is that like when you look at what truly brings people satisfaction, joy, and happiness, it's connection to other people, a
Absolutely.
real in-person connection. So the Sabbath is a time for you not to run around, but focus on that.
Okay, let's talk about being a dad here because
Yes.
8-month old, I mean, do you guys
No,
get
I
it?
have a 4-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and an 8-month-old son.
Well, I know the 8th month is what stood out to me because I'm
Okay.
thinking diapers. I'm thinking like you can't get out of diapers, right? Like,
I would my 2-year-old is sometimes the most challenging, but yes.
okay, okay, that's true. That's true. 2 years old. So, what does that look like? Because I would hate to think you're having a Sabbath at the expense of your wife. you know,
No, because I'm with my wife. No, it's not that I'm not doing anything with childcare. I'm actually with my family. My wife is so happy when my phone goes off. There has been times where literally I am not exaggerating, she's taken the phone from my hand and
Mm.
thrown it in the bushes.
I have done that to myself before, actually.
She was so upset at me, and she's talked to me about all she sees is the top of my head because my head is down looking at my phone.
Yeah,
And so, to my wife and to my relationship, my wife knows she's going to get me for a full day, and so does my daughter and my kids, and like, yeah, I'm focusing on them
right,
and connecting with them, especially now that they're so little, and they all they want to do is play and be around me. Because if I'm lucky, I see them for an hour in the morning and an hour at night
right.
during the week, but I get them for guaranteed a whole day on Saturday.
Okay, here's another question because you brought up the inspiration for Hamilton. And what can happen to me is when I completely take that hard break, I will have those brain connections that you're talking about earlier, where suddenly ideas start coming forth, and I'm a creator. And I struggle with this. I have this tension of, well, is this counting as a break if I'm actually creating, which ultimately has a contribution to my work? Or does this interrupt this idea of stillness? There's this place
It's
where I just
Yeah.
need to kind of let the ideas come and go away because I can start getting ideas and then I start putting pen to paper. And before you know
I
it, I'm
think it's
in create.
perfectly fine. I mean, this is my own view. Is like it's not that you're not going to be able to stop thinking about business or work or things you have to do. The idea is just to kind of take note of it, let it pass, and if there's some kind of magic insight, well, write it down. And then
Yeah,
when your Sabbath is over, your period of heartbreak is over, then you can re-engage with it. But what you're also trying to do is you're trying, this is the thing I struggle with is kind of excessive rumination. You have some challenge or problem
I
and
love my,
you
yeah,
just keep thinking and you keep going over in your mind, and it's this circular thing that makes you more anxious and more and more. And you really just want to try to break that if
Hmm.
you can, especially if it's not productive.
Right.
So, this to me, it all this is it's a tool.
Well, in breaking it, I'll tell you what breaks it is when you sit down and have a conversation with your wife and your phone's off, or when you look at your little eight
Yes.
month old and you get him to smile back at you. Like
Yeah.
that's how we break these excessive ruminations that we all have.
And just being able to take a deep breath, and what doesn't help when you're feeling anxious or you have a problem is feeling like you're on call and that there's emails and stuff, other things that you need to do.
Right.
It's just making you more anxious, which makes it harder for you to think right, to make the proper decisions, and to really gain perspective. The other great thing about the Sabbath that we haven't really touched on is just the perspective. Like, it can be incredibly humbling to turn off and then you turn back on. You realize the world kept spinning without you.
Yeah.
Your company kept running, the world kept going, not much happened. And that is really good. That is a really good thing in the long run. So it reminds you what's important. It reminds you that it's okay that you can turn off. It reminds you that, for a lot of positive things, and also lowers the stress level in what you're doing. Because a lot of times you can really invest yourself in something and you're working really hard. Like a great example is this book. I'm trying to promote this book, get people to agree in the concept of the Sabbath. I could, with my personality, very easily take over and try to do it every second of every day.
Yeah.
But what happens if some people read it, they like it, but it's not some giant bestseller or whatever? It's you know that could happen.
That could happen. Right. But you the world will keep spinning
The
and
world that keeps spinning.
you'll have your family. I love too, you brought up that book, The Power of Habit, which I actually read last year.
Wonderful
And
book.
yes, and I love that idea of a cornerstone habit. So it's this habit, this one habit that can have these trickle effects. I actually have some friends living in Israel right now, and he's a filmmaker. They've been there for about 2 years. And I was catching up with her a few months ago. And I mean, Israel completely shuts down for 24 hours. I mean,
Yes,
it
yes, I
is
do know.
and so she was telling me about what that's done for their family, what that's done for their rhythms. So I'm curious how this has trickled into your life. Having this one cornerstone habit, how has it also been a domino effect on other things?
So in a couple of ways. One is I've realized that I shouldn't make my phone, the centerpiece of my life. So what that
Mm,
means is I realized I don't need to have my phone on me um, when I'm having meals with my family. So
mhm.
it's in a drawer. I don't need to have my phone by me when I'm going to sleep. So I leave it in the kitchen.
Yep.
I realized that the power of notifications. I used
Oh,
to be one of these people that had all the buzzing and the binging and the lights and all that stuff. And I just removed all, there's no more like notifications that have any sound or rhythm or vibration because it was making me like a Pavlov's dog where I was just constantly forced to. It's made me realize, and on a regular basis, of how addictive the technology is. Um, the other thing that it's done, at least on the personal basis, is that it's made me realize that I wasn't being in touch with my family and my extended family like I wanted. And
mm,
so and this is coming up for me right now because I'm going to be turning it off tonight. So I look at this right now and I say, oh, I've got to, from when we're recording right now, I have a couple hours to call my family and loved ones and catch up with them, call my parents, call my two brothers, and basically, hey, how are you doing? I wish them, a wonderful weekend and really get in touch with them because I realized that before I had this rhythm, this break, that sometimes 2 weeks would go by and I wouldn't talk to my parents or my
Oh my
brother.
gosh. I mean, I'm totally there. So that's
Yeah.
been one of the trickle down. That's been one of
Yes. So
the,
you just realize, wait a minute,
wow,
because you start, well, this is the secret, and it can be scary in some ways, but you just start thinking about, it's hard not, when you're not thinking about work and you give yourself space, you start asking yourself what's important. And what's important in people's life?
people.
People, family, loved ones. When was the last time, you talked to this person or that person or this friend and that friend? And, how am I living my life? Am I doing what I really want to do? And it's okay to, the answer may be yes.
Hmm.
The answer may be, I don't know. And that's okay. But it's helpful to have that and not fill our lives with frantic busyness all the time, so that
Hmm.
you at least don't have this regular cadence of a check-in with yourself, with your family, etc.
Okay, I am curious because I actually have made commitments to all the things you're talking about. I quoted you my book earlier, but I find that these old habits will creep back in. And okay, I say that I'm not going to be on my phone, but I'm launching a book right now and this group needs me and
Yeah.
I want these people to feel seen and known, and Instagram is all about like that immediate, connection point. Are you perfect at this?
So, one, I'm definitely not perfect. So let me just
Okay,
say that.
okay.
But one of the reasons to turn the phone off is it's way too powerful. And you just
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that it is. And one of the reasons why I profile Chick-fil-A in the book, and why it really follows on the power of habit and the keystone habit that we were discussing earlier. Is there anything more immediate than fast food?
Right.
And so to have the idea that 1 out of every 7 days your restaurant is closed, and you're all about providing convenience and fast serve to people that want your food, but one day you're saying, no, you can't have my food. Like, that's pretty crazy, right?
It
If you
is.
think about it. But why does the average Chick-fil-A they do 4 times the revenue? The average Chick-fil-A store does 4 times the revenue of the average KFC. It
Wow.
is the highest grossing fast food restaurant per location than any other, even though every other restaurant chain is open every day of the week. They did $9 billion in sales last year. In 2 years, they're going to be the third largest fast food company, and on the trajectory they're on, at some point in the future, they will be the number one fast food chain in this country, and they are closed every seventh day. And so one of the things that you learn from that is that, one, popularity, people's connection to you, people, identifying with you, your level of success does not require that you are available every second. And it's about setting expectations. It's about communicating it, having it on a regular basis. And then what happens is people respect you for it. And I found it in my own personal life, but with Chick-fil-A, they found, well, if they're closed every Sunday, they're pretty strict about it. I bet they're pretty strict about their cleanliness, and I bet their bathrooms are pretty clean. So people go in there, and then, I wonder how they treat their employees. Well, it turns out they treat their employees pretty well. And they started looking and saying, the company as itself started looking and saying, well, most of our employees are seasonal. They're students. How about we start providing scholarships for them? So they've provided millions and millions of dollars of scholarships to their employees. And then it went to, well, what kind of food are we serving? And they said, well, actually, we care about our customers. Should we have antibiotics in our chicken? The answer was, they decided no. So they have removed antibiotics from their chicken. And now it's even going to the welfare of the chickens themselves, And they are enacting where over the next several years, and you can imagine how many chickens they go through, that they're going to be cage free. And this all cascades from the idea of the Sabbath,
Wow.
and where it just builds on itself. And it, in a way, it builds like this very, very large competitive moat where you have a super engaged, loyal workforce that is very diligent about offering the best customer service, and they have the best customer service ratings. The very clean, fast food restaurant with high traffic, and where they're serving quality food, and they're showing people very definitively they care about themselves. And so in the Instagram world, I'm throwing this out. I mean, I didn't profile anyone specifically, in your world, so to speak. But if the values that you're representing, come through, I don't know how that hurts you, and it probably will help you.
Mm-hmm.
One person I do profile in the book that maybe a little more complimentary is Devon Franklin, who is a
Mm-hmm.
Seventh day Adventist and a movie producer. And
Mm.
he, early in his career, he came, Seventh day Adventist, there for him, it's a strong religious commitment. And he
Mm-hmm.
started working on a reality show. And he was working on a reality show, and, movie and TV and reality shoots are notoriously long. And they were going to shoot, and Friday night was coming around. And he said to himself, "Oh my gosh, we're going to have to film. And what do I do? What do I do?" And, he wanted to succeed in the movie business. He was just starting out. What does he do? And he eventually decided, you know what? The, my principles are more important. So he went ahead and said, "I'm sorry, I can't." Everyone was like, "Oh, we understand. We'll shoot on Sunday." And he was
Wow.
like this momentous thing. And he has now become a tremendous success, eventually worked for Sony, now has his own production company, making huge blockbusters, and still observes that Sabbath. And he's on Instagram. He has like, I don't know, 700,000 followers, or, and,
Wow.
written books and all kinds of things. So,
Well, and I love that because I do think that when we take those breaks and make it known, then we really give other people permission and invite them in to that journey, which is really what you've done with this book. And I'm quite sure many people listening are convinced. What are the next steps? I mean, you said you kind of tried a few hours and then tried a few more hours. What's a practical way if someone right now listening is like, you sold me, Aaron. I'm gonna
yeah,
do this.
it's a great question, and it's part of the book that it's like one thing to like pound you down. You're like, "Okay, Aaron, I agree. I need
I
a break."
get it.
Yeah, I get it. And so what I try and do is give tips and tools and suggestions, um, practically, of how you can integrate this in your life. And so some examples. Let's say that, you know, one, I recommend baby steps. So if you're going to do this, don't do it for a day. That's not how I started. It's not what worked for me. Do it on a morning, a Saturday morning. For some people, for some reason, it may be they can't do it on the weekend. I profile some people in the book and give an example where some people turn off at 5 p.m. They help their kids with homework, pick them up, from whatever activity or they're doing, or from school. They cook dinner, they spend time together. They're completely off every weekday at 5. Everyone knows in advance they're gone at 5. So there's none of that peer pressure. And then at 8:30 they turn back on. And everyone knows that they are going to get right back to all the emails and calls. And I don't think that's ideal, but it's a hard break,
Mhm.
and
No, that's a hard
it's
break.
on a regular basis. And some people, the break is on Tuesday. Uh, you know, um, Other tips and kind of things. So you have baby steps. That's what I would recommend. One, you've got to make it work for you. And there are ways you can keep your phone on, by the way, for if you're worried about emergencies, just turn off all notifications. Or depending on what smartphone you have, you can put do not disturb. But many people don't know, and do not disturb, if someone calls you twice within 5 minutes, it'll ring through. So if
Oh,
it's truly an emergency, they can get through to you.
that's good to know. Because I'm like you. I can't have my phone on. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's too powerful for me. That's why I
yeah.
turned it off. The other great thing that I've done, and I have three small kids. Sometimes you're separated from your wife. There might be a health issue or something, and I've had this unfortunately in our lives, where two of my kids have some health issues. They're doing well though. Where my wife and I have had to be in contact on Saturday, and I happen
Hmm.
to believe that life and death obviously is more important than anything else. Um, so uh, we switched phones. There
Mm.
is nothing on my wife's phone
That you're gonna want to check.
that I'm going to want to check. One, she doesn't use Twitter. I'm addicted to Twitter. Um, Her Facebook is hers. It's not mine. None of my work emails are on there.
Right.
Like I
That's
literally,
great. That's a great
and
solution.
so we can stay in touch. People can get in touch with us. Maybe not perfectly, but that's one thing. You could, if you wanted to get an extra phone, you could get a flip phone. Well, I have one. I call it a bat phone, where it's just all it does is it serves as a phone. There's no texting. There's no email. There's no internet. It's a phone.
I'm curious. You're still in the weeds with your little guys. I have a seventh grader now. When are you gonna get them phones?
I don't know. I think that I've actually watched a lot of friends and people I respect have some of them given them very early. Some of them are like, no, you're not getting any phones until high school. But what happens is eventually when they get the phones, it's the same reaction. These devices are amazing. Of course, you're going to want to spend all your time on them, right?
Right.
Like, what's important is not necessarily when you're going to get on the phone. And this is where I think, our kids are watching us.
Yeah, they are.
They're mimicking us. They see what's important. They want to do what we do. And I think this is where like the idea of a break or a Sabbath or just becomes really, really important is just to be like, hey, it's okay to turn off. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's good. Let's connect. Let's just try this for a little bit. And you put this in your toolkit. You don't I don't know how exactly, at least, well, in my house I'm going to ask that at least one day none of the phones are on.
I
But
love it.
uh,
I love
but
it. No,
but
we
but
haven't
it's
gotten
like,
our kids phones yet.
yeah, I look, I honestly, I don't know the answer, and I don't know what the right answer, if there is a right answer, but I think this is where that idea that you don't have to be connected all the time is really powerful. I talk in my book about from this camp director who had to enact a policy and decided, what, for their camp we're going to have a no digital policy. And the first year he was like, I think I'm doing the right thing. I'm really worried what the reaction is going to be from the kids. And who did he have the biggest blowback from? Parents.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're not having? And what reaction did he have from kids? Almost immediately, the kids started coming to him and saying, I'm having the deepest connections with
Ah,
my friends. I'm
so
having the
much
deep
relief. Yeah.
so much relief. And when you look into the studies and you talk to kids who are on their phones all the time and connected, they admit they don't know how to turn off and they wish they could.
Yeah,
It's like sad. It's like crazy. You
it
shouldn't.
is.
It's this electronic leash, and part of it is it's not this thing you're taking away from them. You're adding something in, just like, hey, just take a couple hours. Just give yourself a break. You're gonna love it.
I love it. I love it. You have so inspired me to recommit to my commitment.
Well,
It's
here's the
just what
thing,
I
but you
needed.
also have to make it your own. This can't be a negative. You've got to build, right out of the Power of Habit book, you have to build in rewards.
Yeah,
You have to like really think about, prepare. Like, what happens if people want to get in touch with me so you're not freaking out? Like, how can they get in touch with me? What can I do to make this special? just really you prepare baby steps, you try to use little tips and tricks to kind of build in rewards. And the other thing is, and this is why I wrote the book, is, spread the message.
That was such a good conversation. As you can tell, I tried to think about all of the barriers that you guys were thinking when you were listening. Like, I have kids, so I can't, or I'm doing 2 jobs, so I can't. And he really broke it down and was basically like, yes, you can. I love his tip about how he actually exchanges phones with his wife. I'm like, that is brilliant, because let me tell you, my husband's phone does not have Instagram on it. So we've actually practiced that 1 or 2 times. And even just recalling this whole conversation is making me want to up my game again. The truth is, I have a value to do this, but I haven't been hardcore. And he truly is hardcore. It really is a hard break, a hard stop. So if you want to read more about that and other rituals that I have in my life in order to keep the long view, make sure you go check out Imperfect Courage. It's available at all bookstores, Amazon, Target, all the places. And I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me. We are down to the second to last podcast in this series. So we're about to wrap it up, and then I'll be announcing our next series soon. So thanks for tuning in to today's podcast. Our wonderful music for today's show is by my good friend Ellie Holcomb. The Going Scared podcast is produced by Eddie Kolfholtz, and I'm Jessica Honegger. Until next time, let's take each other by the hand and let's keep going scared.